Yes, sir.
Okay, so far we have, you described some of the events leading up to the shooting, you described how you got into the apartment, into Kendra's parking garage, and you've shown us where you parked, right?
Correct.
Okay. But we have not talked about the planning that went into how all of that was going to take place.
Correct.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 79. Who was that?
Brenda Delgado.
Was she part of the planning for this offense?
Yes, sir.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 218. Who was that?
Kelly Ellis.
Was he part of the planning for this offense?
Yes, sir.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 224. Who was that?
Kristopher Love.
Was he part of the planning of this offense?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, did the planning of this offense take place at an apartment complex called Mandalay Bay?
Yes, sir.
Who lived at Mandalay Bay?
I believe Mr. Love did.
Would Kelly Ellis also be at Mandalay Bay?
Yes, sir.
And the discussions, can you see on the map on State's Exhibits 89, can you circle where the Mandalay Palms apartment complex is? And that's where the planning for this offense took place?
Yes, sir. In apartment 1032.
And tell the jury who's present during this planning.
Me, Crystal Cortes, Brenda Delgado, Kelly Ellis, and Kristopher Love.
Now, when you are talking about the offense, are you coming up with several plans or just one solid concrete plan?
We're coming up with several plans.
Tell the jury, what were the several plans?
One of the plans were to inject her with the needle. Another plan was to shoot her directly. And another plan was to kidnap her.
And did Mr. Love have a plan that he preferred?
He pretty much said that it would be easier just to kill her with the gun.
Now, when y'all were doing your surveillance of Kendra,
Yes.
and I think you said there were times he would accompany you,
Yes.
was there ever a plan to commit this offense at her job?
Yes.
What was the reason, in looking at State's Exhibit 77, do you see the location of her job?
Yes.
Could you circle that, please? And I think you've mentioned that there was a place near her job that y'all would sit and watch.
Yes, the Salvation Army.
And can you take a look at that map and see if you see it there?
It's like right across the street, like right here.
Now, when you're across the street from the Salvation Army watching her job, who's sitting in that vehicle with you?
At one point it was Kelly, me, Kristopher Love, and Brenda. Another time it was me and Kristopher Love. And another time it was me and Ms. Brenda Delgado.
And all this is taking place between the time frame of August the 12th and September the 2nd.
Yes, sir.
Now, on September the 1st, did you all do a practice run?
Yes, we did.
How, describe to the jury what we mean by practice run.
We followed
And first, let me ask you, when you say we, who are we talking about?
me, Kristopher Love, and Brenda Delgado.
Okay. And describe to the jury what the practice run, what that was supposed to look like.
We were supposed to follow her from her apartment to her job, and we basically did that, and we went back to her apartment.
Do you remember the time frame that y'all did this?
I do not, sir.
Do you remember who's front seat, back seat, passenger, driver?
Yes, Brenda was the driver, I was in the front seat, and Kristopher Love was in the back seat.
And why wasn't Kelly part of this practice run? Kelly Ellis?
Because we excluded him in the practice run.
Why?
Because he was sloppy in his work.
Talking too much?
Yes, sir.
Was there a concern that Kelly Ellis would say something that would get out?
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Love share that concern with you?
Yes, sir.
point in time, when y'all start planning this offense, did Mr. Love have a handgun?
He had he found a gun. It was a 40 Smith & Wesson.
Do you know how he found the 40 Smith & Wesson?
I do not.
Did you ever see the 40 Smith & Wesson?
Yes, I did.
On how many occasions did you see it?
Twice.
What about the bullets for that 40 Smith & Wesson?
I saw the day of the murder.
We have this moment, John. Mayor approach. First, I want to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 170. You recognize that?
Yes, sir. It's the 40 Smith & Wesson that we used during the murder.
And who was in possession of the 40 Smith & Wesson?
Mr. Love?
Your office states 170.
No objection.
Commissioner Collins? And I think you told us it was your idea for him to wear gloves while he was loading and handling that.
Yes, sir.
Now, we've talked about who was part of the planning, and you have confessed to being a part of the planning.
Yes, sir.
With respect to that gun, was there something that you did as part of the planning with the use of that gun?
Yes, I called a person to ask for a silencer for a 40 Smith & Wesson.
Approach again, Your Honor. Crystal, did we, at our last meeting, inform you that we had found a recording of you talking to someone about a silencer?
Yes, sir.
And did you have an opportunity to actually listen to that last week?
Yes, sir.
And you verified that that was you on
Yes.
that recording?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'd offer States 111.
No objection.
Commissioner Collins? That's your voice.
Correct.
Do you have any recollection when you did that?
Probably a couple days prior to the crime.
And when we talk about days prior to the crime, was there a day, well, the day before, as part of the planning, did you go to the Irving Dental Office that Kendra Hatcher worked at?
Yes, sir.
And who was with you when you went to the dental office?
Me and Brenda and Kristopher Love.
Was that part of the dry run, or was that part of the surveillance?
That was part of the dry run.
Now, all of the planning takes place at the Mandalay Bay Apartments.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Were there times during those plannings that you and Brenda Delgado are speaking to each other in Spanish?
Yes, sir.
And is the reason for that you don't want Mr. Love or anyone else to hear what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
What were y'all talking about?
We were talking about the payments for Mr. Love and what we were going to pay him and who was going to actually take part in the murder.
And tell me about the discussions about the payments. Was there a disagreement on how much he was supposed to be paid, or
There was no disagreement on how much he was supposed to be paid. He was supposed to be paid in drugs and money.
Do you remember the specific amounts of drugs and money?
I remember that we purchased kush and cocaine for him, and she paid him in cash, but I don't remember the amounts.
Do you remember him agreeing to those payments?
Yes, sir.
What is kush?
Kush is a form of marijuana.
And that's illegal.
Yes, sir.
And obviously cocaine is illegal.
Yes, sir.
Was there ever a plan for this just to be a robbery?
No. It was planned to be a murder and to look like a robbery gone bad.
And in terms of trying to make it look like a robbery gone bad, what was he supposed to take?
He was supposed to take her belongings and kill her at the same time.
What kind of belongings?
Purse, cell phone, if possible, anything that was in the car.
And that was the plan to take all that stuff?
Yes.
Had you ever watched to see what kinds of items she would carry in and out of her car?
No, sir.
Did you just assume that she would have a purse and other items like that?
Yes.
And we'll get there eventually, but was there a purse taken?
Yes, sir.
And who was that purse taken by?
Mr. Love took the purse from Ms. Kendra Hatcher.
And just so the record's clear, Crystal, when you are sitting and waiting, either outside the garage or inside the garage, what kind of car are you looking for?
A Toyota Camry, white.
It states 332. Is that the vehicle y'all were looking for?
Yes, sir.
Now, there was some reference to tracking Kendra's car. Did y'all have a tracker or anything in her car?
No, we would track Ricky with his iPhone. She had another iPhone, and she would find him on the Find Me app, and that's how she knew where Kendra lived, and she would follow Ricky that way.
You had talked about, y'all went and picked up the vehicle from, the vehicle we were talking about, the Jeep I showed you earlier?
Yes, sir.
From Joe? Is Joe Jose Luis Ortiz?
Yes, sir.
Y'all call him Joe?
I call him Joe, yes.
The jury would have come to know him as Jose Luis Ortiz?
Yes, sir.
When we go back to the day of this offense and go back to September 2nd, y'all sat in that garage, in that parking space for about 30, 40 minutes.
Correct.
If that is a diagram on State's Exhibit 70 of that down ramp that you had parked at, can you circle where you had parked your car?
Right around just right here.
Your approach, Ron?
You may.
Show you State's Exhibit 30.
Yes, sir.
And again, it's a photograph of the parking garage. It's a white Maserati.
Yes, sir.
Can you see, looking here, where you would have parked?
Right here where the taillights are at.
Read off the State's Exhibit 30.
Okay.
published. Can you see where you had parked that evening?
Yes, I parked right here, next to a red vehicle.
And what is that we see that lets you distinctly know that's where you parked?
The tail lights is right there, and you can see the red car right here.
Is the red car the last one on that road?
Yes.
So looking again, where would that car have been? Where would you have parked?
Right here.
Thank you, Judge. Okay, Kristopher, after y'all been there about 30, 40 minutes, do y'all see Kendra Hatcher pull up?
Yes, sir.
Who notices her first?
I do.
And when you see her, what do you do?
I tell Kristopher Love that Kendra's car is coming in.
And in response to that, what does he do?
He gets up out from the back seat and he gets the gloves and he gets the pistol and he exits the vehicle.
And what was he doing before, while y'all were waiting for her to get there?
He was laying in the back seat.
Was he doing anything else?
No, sir.
And when she gets there, was he on the passenger side or driver's side of the back seat?
He exits the driver's side back seat.
And what does he do next?
He exits the vehicle and I hear Kendra scream, "Help, help, help me." And then I hear the shots fired and I back up out of the parking space that I was in and he enters the vehicle. I go down the ramp because I thought there was another exit, but there wasn't. So I had to turn back around and exit through the main entrance.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. So after he has shot Kendra Hatcher, he walks back to the Jeep that you're in.
Yes, with her belongings.
What is he carrying with him?
He has her purse, an Nikon camera, and that's it, and the weapon.
And you were in the process of backing out when he was walking up to the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Why did you start backing out when he started walking towards the vehicle?
When I heard the shots fired, I knew that he had killed Kendra Hatcher, and that's when I went ahead and hit the reverse and started backing out of the parking space that I was in.
Now, when you back out, do you back out and head in the direction that you drove in, or did you head to a different direction?
I head to the different direction, the opposite direction of the way that I came in, because I thought there was another exit.
And how did you realize there wasn't another exit?
Because it was like 3 or 4 slots where cars were parked, so I had to turn back around and come in through the same entrance that I came in through, exit the same entrance that I came in through.
And in doing that, you and Mr. Love would have driven past.
Her body.
Did you see her body?
Yes, sir.
When y'all leave that parking garage, where do you go?
I go to a house in Pleasant Grove. We clean the vehicle, and then I go back to the Mandalay Apartments.
And when you say we, who are we talking?
Me and Kristopher Love.
How are you cleaning the vehicle?
With disinfectant wipes that me and Brenda had got from the dental office she worked at the night before of the crime.
And is Mr. Love participating in the cleaning of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Where do y'all go after you? Where is this at when you're cleaning the vehicle?
In Pleasant Grove.
Now, on that vehicle, do you remember what kind of tags were on the tag?
We stole paper tags from a Durango.
And again, who was we?
Me and Brenda did.
And who put the tags on the vehicle?
Kristopher Love did.
Are the tags still on the vehicle when you are cleaning
We take the tags off when we clean the vehicle.
it? Okay. Who took the tags off?
I did.
Who's with you when you're taking the tags off?
Kristopher Love.
And how long did y'all stay there cleaning the vehicle?
About 5-10 minutes.
Now, whose house were you at when you, or was it at a house when you were cleaning the vehicle?
It was an abandoned house.
Had you previously been to that house?
No, I just found a house.
And then you said it was in Pleasantville?
Yes, sir.
Where do y'all go to when you leave that house?
We go
When I
to-
say, who's in the vehicle with you when you leave that house?
Me and Kristopher Love are in the vehicle, and we go to the Mandalay Apartments, back to apartment 1032.
And what happens after you get back there?
I drop Kristopher Love off. I go back to my grandmother's house. I pick up my son. Brenda contacts me and gives me Joe or Jose Luis Ortiz's address, and I go back to his house to change the Jeep for the BMW.
Now, when you get back to, after you drop Mr. Love off, when you dropped him off, where was that .40 caliber Smith & Wesson?
It was still in his possession.
When you call Brenda call you after y'all done this?
She called me from Jose's phone
You know approximately what time?
between 8 and 9, around that time.
And when she calls you on his phone, when she calls you in general, why is she calling?
She asked me if the task is complete, meaning did we commit the murder, and I say yes. And she sends me Jose's address, and we go back. I go back to his address in the Jeep.
And when you get back to, go back to, had you ever been to Mr. Ortiz's
House? Never before.
And that information came from Brenda?
Yes, sir.
Very close to witness, right? So I want to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 91. You had a chance to review this recording last week of you and Brenda going back to Jose's residence with the Jeep.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall looking at this?
Yes, sir.
And does it accurately reflect what y'all did when you got back to Jose's house?
Yes, sir.
Does it show you and Brenda unloading the Jeep?
Yes, sir.
Does it also show Jose putting your son in
The BMW?
the BMW?
Yes, sir.
Now, your son wasn't present when y'all were committing this offense, was he?
No, he wasn't.
How did he happen to end up in the back of the Jeep that evening?
I picked him up from my grandmother's house.
And when did you pick him up from your grandmother's house?
After the crime was committed, after I dropped off Kristopher Love at the Mandalay Apartments.
Hand off of States 91. States Exhibit 91.
No, Jim.
I'm sorry, what number was it?
91. Commissioner. Now, this is not footage from Jose's house. This is footage from across the street at a neighbor's house.
Correct.
And at the top of the screen, do we see a vehicle pull up?
Yes, sir.
Who is that?
That's me and my son in the Jeep. Brenda and Joe.
What do we see you doing?
Exiting the vehicle.
And why are you exiting the vehicle?
Because Brenda and Joe pull up behind me in the BMW.
Now, they haven't gotten there yet, so what are you doing right now? You're outside the vehicle.
I'm putting everything, the purse and the shirt that Kristopher Love used, and the gloves and the paper tags in another bag.
Do you remember what you were wearing that night?
I was wearing a red shirt and black pants.
What about any kind of mask or hoodie that was used?
I used a mask, it was a hoodie that had a mask on it, and I used it during the crime.
Okay, when you say it's a hoodie that had a mask on it, just how describe that?
It zipped up all the way to the top, and it had a mask when you put it over like that.
Do you remember what kind of mask?
It was a skeleton mask.
Like a Day of the Dead type of mask?
Yes, sir.
Now, at this point, Jose and Brenda, have they arrived yet?
Yes.
Is that them right there?
Yes, sir, that's the BMW.
And who's getting out of the BMW?
Brenda and Joe.
Now, you mentioned that you had picked up your son. Where was he?
He was in the back seat.
And who is that walking to the Jeep?
Joe. He picks up my son and takes me back to the BMW.
Is your son asleep?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is Brenda doing?
She's surveying the belongings of Kendra Hatcher and the evidence that we had, such as the t-shirt that Mr. Love used, and the gloves and the paper tags.
Does she ever go inside the Jeep?
No, she doesn't, but we open the door and she slings Kendra's purse around her shoulder.
Do you see Brenda?
Yes.
And what is she doing?
She's talking to me in the back of the Jeep. We're talking.
Do you remember what y'all were talking about?
She basically said that we completed the murder and she wanted to get the purse and put it around her shoulder. And we left Joe out of, she said not to tell Joe what happened, so we left him out of what happened. There you could see she has a purse around her shoulder.
Do you remember what the purse looked like, Crystal?
Yes, it was brown with the white stripe in the middle. It was a Coach purse.
And in addition to the purse, do you remember a wallet?
Yes, it was a Kate Spade wallet. It was green.
What was in that wallet?
Money.
And where did that money end up?
Kristopher Love took the money.
Now, what is Jose doing? What do we see him doing?
He's hugging me and swinging me around.
And Brenda?
She's putting the purse in the BMW.
is that getting into the Jeep?
Joe.
Jose?
Yes.
And who is that driving off in the Jeep?
Joe. Jose.
Now, at this point, where are you and Brenda?
We are in the BMW.
When y'all Thank you, Judge. Now, when y'all leave there, where do you and Brenda go?
We go back to downtown Dallas to another parking garage, and we switch the BMW for her Lexus.
And from that parking garage, where do the two of you go?
We go to Waxahachie.
Why are you going to Waxahachie?
We go to Waxahachie to get rid of the purse and the credit cards that were in the Kate Spade, and the rest of the evidence, which was the shirt and the gloves and the paper tags that we used.
Why go to Waxahachie to do that?
We thought it was like the furthest place to go.
And how were y'all going to get rid of this evidence?
We were going to burn it. She had lighter fluid in the back of her car.
Now, did you actually burn those items in Waxahachie?
No.
Why not?
There was a car parked around the area that we selected, so we drove off and went back to my grandmother's house.
And where's your grandmother's house?
Over there off of Polk and 20,
So it's back in Dallas.
back in Dallas, yes.
And what happens when you get to your grandmother's house?
We go to the backyard and we burn the paper tags, the shirt, the hoodie that I used, the inside, the contents of the purse. We still didn't burn the purse and the wallet yet. Me and Brenda.
Why did you select your grandmother's house to do that burning?
Because my uncle had previously burned leaves, so there was like a burn mark in the ground.
Now, does Brenda leave you that evening, or do y'all stay together?
She goes back to Joe and she talks to Joe that evening.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
So let me show you State's Exhibit 109. Do you recognize who's in that photograph?
Me and Brenda Delgado,
And do you remember what vehicle you were in when this picture's taken?
we were in the Lexus.
And State's Exhibit 110, do you recognize this photograph?
That's my hand with money in it.
That's my what?
My hand with money in it.
Okay. And what's the significance of this money?
That was my payment for completing the task of driving Kristopher Love to kill Kendra Hatcher.
Your Honor, we offer States 109, States 110.
No objection.
Admit it.
Commissioner Publish?
You may.
Again, Krista, who is that in the photograph?
Me and Brenda Delgado.
And you remember, who's taking that photo? It looks like a selfie. Is that you taking that photo?
Yes, sir.
With your phone?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what your phone number was then?
It was 214-299, and I can't remember the last four.
214-299, the 7810 sound about right?
Yes, sir.
Does a number of 972-467-7995, does that sound familiar?
Yes, sir.
And who do you believe that number belongs to?
Kristopher Love.
someone else's number?
Might have been Brenda's.
Just, can we have a minute, Sharon? May I approach you, Your Honor?
You may.
Witness. First, I'll show you what's marked as State's Exhibits 115. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
And what is that a photograph of?
Brenda's Lexus.
New York State's Exhibit 115.
No different.
Advantage.
Commissioner Crawford.
You may.
And looking at State's Exhibit 110, what are we showing the jury?
The money that I received from me driving the Jeep the day of the crime.
And who took that photograph?
I did. And Brenda's Lexus.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes, sir.
And looking at State's Exhibit 137, do you recognize this?
Yes, those are my keys to the car that I had.
New York State's 137.
No different.
Advantage.
Commissioner Bowles?
You may.
Now, the next day, Crystal, were you aware of all the news coverage this offense was getting?
Brenda told me about it. We didn't think it was going to be so big.
And what was your state of mind when you saw that?
I needed to talk to somebody. We were getting worried. Brenda told me she was going to flee. And we went to the apartment, the Mandalay Apartments, and Kristopher Love was kind of worried.
He was only kind of worried.
He was worried.
How long did y'all stay at the apartments the next day?
Not very long.
And when you left, who left the apartments that day?
Me and Brenda.
And where did you go?
We went to Joe's job, and then we went out to eat at a Mexican restaurant off of Harry Hines.
Is that the last time you saw Brenda?
Yes.
Is there a plan to get away?
Her plan was, since it was so big, she said she just wanted to go to Mexico. She was going to Mexico.
Did you have a plan to get away?
No.
Was that the last time you saw Brenda Delgado?
Yes.
When is the last time you saw Kristopher Love?
At the apartments, at the Mandalay Apartments.
What day?
The day after the murder.
Did Mr. Love at some point text you about getting his payment?
Yes.
When was that?
The day after the murder.
Did he ever receive his payment?
Yes, he did.
Who delivered his payment?
Me and Brenda Delgado did.
Now, didn't take the police very long to call you in, did it?
No.
Do you remember how long after this happened that the police brought you in?
I believe 2 days after.
And do you remember several different explanations you gave the police?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember telling them that you just happened to be driving and someone just jumped in your car?
Yes, sir.
You remember telling them that it was someone that told you that they knew where you lived?
Yes, sir.
You remember telling the police you agreed to drive and do all this because you were afraid for your son's life?
Yes, sir.
Did you eventually admit to the police that you knew who the shooter was?
Yes, sir.
Did you give them a description of the kind of car the shooter drove?
Yes, sir.
How did you know that description?
Because I seen Kristopher Love in the Sebring that he drove.
Even at the police station, after you gave them a description of Mr. Love in the car, were you still telling them everything that you knew?
No.
Why not?
I didn't know what to say and what not to say.
Could it be because you were involved?
Yes, sir.
You knew that you were in serious trouble?
Yes, sir.
May I approach, Your Honor? Show you State's Exhibit 192. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, that's the Sebring that Kristopher Love used to drive in.
Is that a convertible?
Yes, sir.
What color is the convertible top?
It's black.
And what color is the vehicle?
Blue.
State's 192, Your Honor.
You'll get,
Mr. Cortes. How long do you think you were inside the police station not being honest about what happened?
A month.
They sat down with you several occasions.
Yes, sir.
And at one point, did you give them a description?
Yes, sir.
Was there something distinctive about the shooter that you told them?
Yes, he had dreads and a cut on his hand.
Did they draw a description of that cut?
Yes, sir.
Approach, Judge. And you also gave them a description, a physical description?
Yes, sir.
What was it about his hair that was distinctive?
It was twisted.
What is twisted?
Uh,
Like braids?
no, it wasn't plaited. It's twisted.
Dreads?
Almost like dreads.
Show you State's Exhibit 112. Is that how you describe the scar on his hand?
Yes, sir.
And then State's Exhibit 18, is that how you describe the description?
Yes, sir.
And do we see on here,
I'm sorry, did you say 18 or 118?
18, Your Honor, do we see on here what you described in terms of how the hair was?
Yes, sir.
Judge, we offer States 112 and 18.
you'll get.
Permission to publish? Crystal, show us where that scar is that you were referring to. And looking at 18, does that represent the description of the hair as you recall back in 2015?
Yes, sir.
Now, during these times, because you talked to the police more than once, you've told us, do they eventually show you a lineup?
Yes.
And did you pick someone out?
Yes, I did.
Did you later learn you picked out the wrong person?
Yes, I did.
So even at at some point, knowing that you're charged with capital murder, you're still not being truthful with the police.
Yes.
And a year later, you sit down with me and my fellow prosecutors, talked a little bit more, but you still weren't 100% truthful.
Correct.
So when we met on September the 21st of this year, you decided to be completely truthful about what happened.
Yes, sir.
When we met on September the 21st, is that the first time you told anyone that the three of y'all, you, Brenda, Kristopher Love, had followed her every day for 2 weeks?
Yes.
Is that also the first time you told anyone this was always set to be a robbery?
I'm sorry, please rephrase your question.
Was that also the first time? I'm talking when you sat down with us last month.
Yes, sir.
Was that also the first time you let anyone know this was always set out to be a murder?
Yes.
You wanted it to look like a robbery, but killing was the intent.
Yes, sir.
Had anyone ever heard about how the property that was taken was destroyed before that meeting?
No, sir.
Had anyone ever heard about the wearing of gloves to load the gun and clean the gun? Had anyone ever heard that before that meeting?
No, sir.
Now, during the planning of this offense at the Mandalay Apartments, do you remember a female by the name of Angelica being present?
Yes.
Was she part of the plan?
No.
Do you remember her being there as a friend of Kelly Ellis?
Yes, sir.
Just 1 minute, Your Honor. So going back to some of the planning that went into this, and I think you told us about the different vehicles that Brenda drove.
Yes, sir.
There was a Mustang, I believe you said was owned by her cousin.
Correct.
Was there ever a trip to the ATM with that Mustang?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that trip?
To pay for Christopher's part of the murder.
The amount of money that he was supposed to get in accordance with the drugs too.
Yes, sir.
And in terms of this being a ruse, I think you just told this juror this was always a murder.
Yes.
Was he aware that this was always a murder?
Yes, sir.
And in our meeting, September the 21st, did you admit that that morning you offered to do the shooting?
Correct, I did.
And what changed that stopped you from being the shooter?
Because I knew how to get around Dallas, and then Christopher decided to commit the murder.
And how does he just decide? What does he say?
He says that he's in the back seat and I'm driving, and so he says, "Well, you just drive and I'll do the murder."
Volunteer?
Yes.
Pass the rules.
Ms. Cortes, to say that you've told a few different stories about this case would be pretty minimizing the amount of lies that you've told in regards to this case. Is that not true?
That is true.
And in fact, you've never told the same story twice to anybody, have you?
No.
In fact, when you started talking to the prosecutor saying that now I'm going to tell you the truth, your stories have still changed when you talk to them.
Correct.
Is that not right?
That's correct.
You probably gave upwards of 40, 50 hours of recorded interviews to the police department.
Correct.
And in fact, all the way up through your version that you decided to share with the prosecutors now, you would give anything that you could say, you would say anything at all to try to deflect any attention away from yourself, weren't you?
At first I was.
Okay. And when did you decide to stop that?
I decided to stop that after my mother died.
When was that?
Last year in November.
So November of 2017?
Yes.
Then could you tell us why it was that when you talked to the prosecutors in September of this year, you were still lying to them?
I wasn't lying to them.
Your story changed between September and October.
Hasn't
Yes, I'm going to
changed.
object that said in this statement of testimony.
So when did you decide to, is it not in fact correct, Ms. Cortes, that the only time that you agreed to come in here and tell the version that meets with the state's theory of this case was whenever your attorney met with you and told you that if you did not cooperate, they were going to try you for either the death penalty or life without parole?
That's not what he said, sir.
Your attorney did not tell you that.
No.
What did he tell you?
He said that if I cooperated, I could get a lesser sentence, but he did not say that I would get tried for the death penalty or life without parole.
Okay, ma'am, in fact, did he not inform you that the Kristopher Love admitted to being involved in a robbery plan, but did not admit to being involved in any plan to commit a murder?
Yes.
And that his testimony was going to be that you were the one who actually pulled the trigger. Is that not what made you decide that you were going to come forward with this story?
Yes.
Okay, so it was clearly the implication from your attorney to you that you were going to be the one that was sitting here looking at possibly a death sentence.
Yes.
Okay, why did you just change your answer when I phrased it to you a little differently?
Because I didn't understand it the first time.
Okay, so basically, this epiphany that you had from November of last year until October or September and October of this year had nothing to do with your mother's death. It was you became afraid that you were going to be possibly facing the maximum penalty for this crime. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this person you talked about, Kelly Ellis, you all the way up and through your conversations you had with the police, and you continued these lies for 50, 60 hours, however much it was. I mean, they were basically pulling you out of the jail cell over there on a daily basis, weren't they?
Yes, sir.
And they were taking you over there, and you were in there for hours at a time talking to these detectives.
Yes, sir.
Now, a lot of the details that you gave the detectives, that you gave to deflect things from yourself, involved Kelly Ellis.
Correct.
And I'm going to go back to one of those areas of detail involving Kelly Ellis that led up to your testimony today, because it's the first time I've heard it, is that do you recall telling the detectives that it was you and Kelly Ellis that were sitting in Kendra Hatcher's parking garage the
Yes.
morning of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you telling us now that that's true or that that's a lie?
That is a lie.
Okay, then why would you tell the police that? I mean, Kelly Ellis was someone that had lived next door to you for several years, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Then why are you telling the police all the way up to? In fact, when you were telling the police that story, and they had Kelly Ellis sitting in a room next door to you, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why are you telling the police that about Kelly Ellis if that wasn't true?
Because I was afraid and I wanted to deflect the attention from me.
Well, how did blaming this on Kelly Ellis deflect it from you?
It just did. I don't know.
Okay, so you're telling us that when you told the police that was a lie.
Yes, sir.
Well, you'd already told them about this supposed shooter, the person that you called. That, I mean, for several days you had no name or nothing associated with it, right?
Correct.
And then you finally admitted that you'd been lying, correct?
Correct.
If I had to say that would you agree with me that you probably told the police at least 1,000 different times while you were talking to them, I swear to God, I'm not lying to you?
Yes,
Does
sir.
that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
And so that's the same oath that you took when you came in here today, that you weren't going to lie to these folks, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay, and it really, your oath doesn't mean anything. The only thing that means anything to you is saving Kristopher Cortes.
No, sir.
Well, what means something to you, ma'am?
It does mean that there will be justice for Kendra Hatcher.
Oh, so all of a sudden now you're worried about justice for Kendra Hatcher.
Yes, sir.
When did you start worrying about that?
When I knew it was the right thing to do,
And when was that?
after I testified.
After you testified. Well,
Yes.
you understand you haven't finished testifying yet.
Correct.
Okay. But you've already signed up all your paperwork for your deal.
Yes, sir.
And there's no question about this, that you and Brenda Delgado were the two people behind this entire plan. Is that right?
Yes, and Christopher Love too.
I'm sorry?
Christopher Love was involved in the planning as well.
Well, from the way it's been described here in this courtroom, you ought to run through a cast of characters trying to find someone to do your dirty work. Is that right?
No.
Well, you weren't familiar with the other people that was claiming that Brenda was trying to get them to do something?
I'm sorry, rephrase your question?
Are you familiar with the other cast of characters that are claiming that Brenda tried to get them to do something?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so again, Christopher Love is a footnote in this case, besides you claim now that he was the pawn that y'all used to commit this offense.
He agreed.
Okay. According to you. In fact, all the way up until October the 2nd of 2015, when you were talking to the police, you'd pretty much given them a whole rundown of everything that was supposed to happen, except you were leaving out the names. Is that right?
Correct.
And in fact, you told them that you were the one that was you went over there with Kelly Ellis that morning, took him back and dropped him off at home. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And what did you tell the police that you did after that?
That I went to Brenda's house.
You didn't tell them you went back to Kendra's because you were going to catch her by yourself and you were going to do this deal yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, that certainly is not deflecting any attention from yourself. And if that's not true, why would you tell them that? And then take it one step further, why would you come in here and say something different to these folks today?
I would want to tell them the truth.
Which part of this is the truth, man?
The fact that I drove Christopher Love to the apartments and around Dallas to commit the crime of killing Kendra Hatcher.
What about the part that you told the police that you and Kelly Ellis had been there that morning doing surveillance, and that you took Kelly Ellis back and dropped him off, and you were going over there to commit this crime yourself? You told the police that, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And my question to you is, how does that deflect attention from you by your coming out and admitting that you were going to commit this offense by yourself?
It doesn't deflect attention from me.
So what were you planning on doing? You were planning on killing Kendra Hatcher out there yourself that morning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell me where you got the gun.
I didn't get the gun at the time. I didn't have the gun.
You didn't have a gun?
No.
Well, tell the jury how it was that you went back over there that morning to commit this offense without a gun.
I didn't have the gun at the time.
Well, man, that's my question to you is, you told the police you went back over there to commit the crime. And you sat there and stalked her at her apartment, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Well, how were you doing that if you're not the one that had the gun the whole time, man?
Christopher Love had the gun.
Well, then why are you sitting in the apartment by yourself and without him?
He's in the back seat.
Early that morning?
Yes, early that morning he was in the back seat.
Okay, well, that's not what you told the police, though, man. That's my point.
I understand.
You recall the conversation that I'm talking to you about. You
Yes.
remember when finally, after all these hours of talking to you, Detective Barnes come in there and basically slammed his... You started off with, I'm not lying. And he slammed his hand down on that table and said, darling, you better tell me the truth right now. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And then you admitted to him that, no, I went over there by myself. I was going to do it because I could get all the money. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
Well, my question to you, ma'am, is how are you going to do it and get all the money if you didn't have the gun?
I didn't do it, though.
Were you planning on doing it?
Yes.
How are you planning on doing it if you weren't the one that had the gun all along, ma'am?
I don't know.
I'm sorry?
I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this video that they played here showing you on the phone. You're on the phone trying to buy a silencer from somebody for you, aren't you?
Yes, and Brenda's recording it.
What was the purpose of recording that, man? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And plus, why would you be on, was Chris Love in the backseat then?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Chris Love was in the car at that point in time.
Yes.
You didn't say that earlier. You haven't said that before to anybody. You've been interviewed by the state twice. I've got the notes from those interviews. You had never said he was in the car when that happened, did you?
No, sir.
So when did you decide you were going to share that information with us?
Today.
Today.
Yes.
And why hadn't you shared it before?
Because I completely forgot about that video. I really did.
Well, you hadn't forgot about it before today. They played it for you, hadn't they?
Yes.
Okay. So why hadn't you ever told anybody that Chris Love's in the car? And if he was, why wasn't he the one on the phone trying to buy a silencer?
Because I knew the person. I didn't know the person, but I looked on Facebook and I contacted the person myself.
Why would you? Okay, tell me how that happened.
I was on Facebook and there was a person selling guns, and I contacted that person and I called them and asked them for the silencer.
Okay. And I would assume that you're telling me that someone is on Facebook selling an illegal silencer is illegal. Are you aware of that?
No.
So you just someone's offering to sell illegal products on Facebook.
They were selling guns, and I called to see if they would sell a silencer.
And what they tell you?
They didn't have it.
But it's your testimony now that Chris was in the car on that particular case.
Yes, sir.
What day was that? You recall?
It was a couple days before the murder.
Okay, where were you at? Where were you going?
We were on the freeway, and I don't remember where we were going.
Okay. Now, was Chris in the car or was Kelly Ellis in the car?
Kristopher Love was in the car.
And so, it's your testimony that this was a plan that you and Brenda had hatched, and then that you met Chris Love, and he agreed to do it, and then the things go down the way that you said that they went down.
Yes, sir.
And is it not in fact true, ma'am, that the other people that had been contacted about doing this had been contacted about being involved in a robbery?
I'm not sure.
Well, you always were adamant that this whole case involved the taking of Kendra Hatcher's ID so that she couldn't go down and get on an airplane the next day to leave town with Ricardo Panigua. Is that not correct?
That was correct.
Okay. And when did you say that you decided you were going to come clean about that not really being the case?
After I met with the prosecutors
And when was that?
in September of this year.
And that was right after you were told you were going to be looking at the capital murder charge.
Yes, sir.
Now, the videotape on that, have you seen the actual videotape from the parking garage?
Yes, sir.
Okay, when did you see that?
In September.
Okay, and you agree with me, there's some things you can see on there, but there's a lot of things you can't see on there, is there?
Correct.
In fact, you can't see anything about who does the shooting.
Correct.
And you can see somebody get out of the car, go over there, come back, and then you take the car and you drive it right back to the area where Kendra Hatcher's body's found, don't you?
Yes, sir.
And you told the jury that you'd been in there on 2 weeks, every day, multiple times,
Yes, sir.
scouting this parking garage, hadn't you?
Yes, but we never went down the ramp.
Oh, you never went down. You never, in all these 2 weeks, you're planning on committing this crime and you're planning on being able to get away with it. But it's your testimony that you never figured out or thought about how you were going to get out of there.
No. I never went down the ramp until the day of the murder.
Are you sure that's the reason why you went down that way on the day of the murder?
I thought there was another exit down the ramp.
What would make you think there was an exit down the ramp?
I saw an exit sign and I thought it was going the opposite way.
So you go down there and stop, and that car's out of sight for over 40 seconds, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
What's going on during that time?
I'm trying to get back around to the main entrance to exit.
And your testimony is that when you come driving by there, then that's when you see Kendra Hatcher on the ground.
Yes, sir.
You said that after all this happens, you and Brenda go back and you next meet up with her where?
We meet Brenda up. I meet Brenda at Joe's house after the murder.
Okay. And you testified that while you were planning this thing, you and Brenda would discuss and talk in Spanish and just try to decide about how much to pay Kristopher Love. Is that right?
Correct.
And then when the prosecutor asked you what that was supposed to be, you said, "Oh, I've got no idea." Could you tell me how it was that y'all discussed it and planned it?
We just discussed to pay him in money and drugs, but I didn't know the amount. She didn't tell me the amount.
Then tell the jury why it is that you said that when you went there by yourself to commit this crime, that you did it because you wanted to get all the money for yourself. How much were you supposed to get?
She didn't tell me the number, the exact number.
And you're saying that this all was come up because she was supposed to be in the cartel?
Yes,
And it was believable to you in some fashion that if she was involved with the cartel and the kind of people that associate with the cartel, that y'all would have to go around and find a friend of one of your buddies to be involved in something like this instead of getting the cartel to do it?
yes,
And you really expect anyone to believe that?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, is that your understanding of what the way the cartel operates?
I don't know how the cartel operates.
So what did she tell you about being involved with the cartel?
That she was getting a lot of money and she was flaunting her money and she had multiple connections.
Did you see any of her connections?
No,
It didn't cause you any concern?
no.
Now, this deal you have with the state, how much time are you getting?
35 years.
And that 35 years that you're getting, your agreement is that as being the person, along with Brenda Delgado, who put this whole plan together, that this is a way you could escape the death penalty. Is that right?
No, sir.
What was your understanding?
I just understood that I would get a lesser sentence, not the death penalty.
Do you know if Ms. Delgado has cut her a deal?
No, I don't know.
That's all I have at this time, Judge.
Kristopher, just so that the record is clear, you've entered a plea of guilty at this point.
Yes, sir.
You have not been sentenced.
Correct.
So the judge has not sentenced you to 35 years.
Okay.
Last week, the judge did not sentence you to 35 years. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
You just entered a plea of guilty.
Yes, sir.
And it's your understanding that if you testify truthfully in this trial and in Brenda Delgado's trial, the judge then will sentence you to 35 years.
Yes, sir.
Now, you were asked about the cartel. Were there things that Brenda did to give the impression she had a lot of money?
Yes, she did. She would flaunt her money. She would go to the ATM often. She'll pull out money. And she said that they were paying for her schooling and that they would pay for her apartment.
What about her apartment? What part of town was she living in?
She stayed right there behind City Place. And the apartment is behind City Place.
Fairly nice neighborhood?
Yes.
And she's driving a fairly nice car?
Yes.
Is she driving other nice cars?
BMWs and stuff.
Mustang?
Yes.
Mr. Love ever see her drive that Mustang?
Yes.
Numerous times?
Yes.
And you were asked about never going down that ramp, despite the number of times that you've been at that garage. You recall that question?
Yes, sir.
Do you also recall telling us that the number of times that y'all went to that
I want
place?
Jake to leave, Your Honor.
Where did you normally see Kendra Hatcher park her vehicle?
In the main entrance, after you enter, there's a little parking space right there.
That's not near the down ramp, is it?
No.
In your mind, were you thinking that's where she would have been that day?
Yes, sir.
Were you surprised that she parked somewhere else?
Yes.
Had you ever seen her park anywhere else during the time that y'all had surveilled her?
No, sir.
The times that y'all had surveilled her, how would you exit the garage?
The same way we entered.
Passwords.
Judge, I believe that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, ma'am. getting ready to go to take our lunch recess. It's 11:45, and we'll be back in the jury room at 1 o'clock.
All right.